All right, Garrett. Hey, thanks for coming on Above the Noise podcast, man. I really appreciated it. And I know your experience just through life and the industry. I know you're in real estate now. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I think it'll give great perspective to potential homeowners, potential people who want to be in real estate, or maybe they're already in real estate. So thanks for coming on. Why don't you tell us how your journey got you to where you're one of the top agents in the area? And where did it all start? Let's go back. I mean, you've been in real estate for a short period of time, so tell us how you got here.
Yeah, I mean, so that's something I'm always happy to share. Growing up, I'm from Marion County, right here in the Valley. So I've been here my entire life. My whole family's here. I jokingly tell people when the Mayflower landed, this is where we wound up. So, been here a long time. Got a large family, large friend base. Know a bunch of people. We'll kind of skip through, elementary, middle, and high school. And my first full-time job out of college was at Gentry Chevrolet in Kimball. I had grown up with the general sales manager's children, so he's always been kind of a mentor to me, and he kept up with my professional career and through college, and the timing worked out that they had a finance position open, which if you've ever bought a car, you've dealt with your salesperson, maybe the sales manager.
They always blame it on the finance guy.
It's always the finance guy's fault. The slick back hair and the smells like cigarettes. And but I got that job when I was 20, believe it or not. Jim Gentry hired me when I was 20 years old. And at the time it was my dream job, and in a way, a lot of the aspects have carried over to translated well to real estate. But that job is more than just pick your loan, sell the extended service contract and the gap coverage and the products and move on. It's definitely a problem-solving job, especially when you have someone who's got challenged credit. They're in a car that's breaking down. How can I solve the problem of getting them into a nice, affordable car that's reliable? So my job heavily consisted of working directly with the sales team, working directly with lenders. I was on the phone all the time. Hey, what can I do to get this? Maybe we need a rate shave, or maybe we need to find a way to make it work. What if the customer brought $500 down? What if we put $500 more in their trade? What can we do to put a deal together? And I think a lot of those problem solving, what can we do to make this work, mindset has translated well into real estate. A lot of agents, if the transaction goes south, or maybe there's an issue with financing, or maybe, there's a leak that we just can't seem to get past, they just kind of give up, and the thing is, with my experience, I think it does my buyers and sellers a huge service to be able to work through just those little problems, before they become bigger problems. So, but that's, as far as what got me into real estate, I was a finance manager for 5 years, made great money. But I wanted something that was mine, something that nobody can take from me. And I jokingly tell myself, I got out of the car business because I wanted flexible hours, and I could work whenever I wanted and call out whenever I wanted.
That's a concept.
Everybody always
have, right?
Right. People get into real estate because they like to be their own boss and flexible hours and unlimited earning potential. And those things are all there, but they don't see, that's all surface. They don't see everything below the surface that goes into, being able to take a 2-week vacation if I wanted to. Now, if I'm on vacation, the phone's right here with me because I can't put it down.
Right.
But I know when to take a step back, when it comes to that. But what got me into real estate was most people say when they get into real estate, again, they want unlimited earning potential, be my own boss. I like houses, which is my favorite one that people say. I like looking at houses. And then, flexible, schedule. I got into it because I like working directly with people. And I like, helping people solve a complex problem, and having a happy ending, and some deals are very straightforward and easy. As most aren't. There's always something that gets, some sort of negotiation or somebody's mad at somebody. And our job as agents is to treat it like a white glove position, which it is. So I've taken a lot of what I learned in finance into this role when it comes to the actual job. And not only that, I enjoy the marketing aspect of it. I like being able to, I tell people I can get on Canva and just whip up this great graphic and make it look nice. And I said, that's kind of my creative outlet, because I'm not a creative person, naturally. But if you can lock me in a room and let me, make some marketing graphics, I try to do that, when I'm at the office. In addition to just, if I can integrate my work and my life, real estate has just given the perfect medium to do that. So
yeah. So when you were younger, because I've always envied people because I was not one of those people. Did you already have a certain path? Like when you were younger, did you have that thing in mind that you said, I want to do this? Or were you like me and you kind of fell into it? And, I know you started the financing. Did you think that was the path you were going to go, like through high school? Or
it's funny you say that. I never thought I would be a real estate agent. Nothing against being a realtor. It was just never on my radar. Growing up, my mother, she worked for a dentist for a long time, and I thought, well, I'm going to go to dental school and I'm going to make a lot of money and be a dentist, and that's that. I don't really care to look at other people's teeth.
Right, yeah.
So that was out. But you go through the different, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a this. I want to be a that. So I went through a lot of that while I was, late middle school, getting into high school. And then really, believe it or not, what gave me the most fulfillment and what I think I wanted to be about my sophomore, junior year, I really wanted to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. That's what I wanted to go to school for, because I thoroughly enjoyed working with, the middle school students and tutoring, prepping them for, TCAP. And this is just, doing it because I enjoyed doing it. And then the biggest sense of fulfillment that I got was I was at a football game one time, and I was a senior. It was my senior year. And a lady come up to me and she said, "Oh my God, you must be Garrett." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am." And she said, "Your help in my, at the time, when I was tutoring, her son was in 6th grade. His TCAP scores improved so much that he was, I think he would wind up being in the top, 95th percentile of, coming from someone who really struggled in math. That was one of my favorite subjects to tutor because I could translate it in a way that was fun and relatable versus, some of the boring teachers, or mean teachers or whatever. But it was just so much fun. So that's what I wanted to do. And then I thought, well, at the base of it, do I actually want to go into education and, and be a teacher, or do I want to have a role that I can, more of a consultant type role? Mm-hmm. So in a way, I am a teacher. I teach people how to buy and sell real estate, and using me as their professional. So that's really, as I grew up, that's what I wanted to do. At the time, I had someone say, "Garrett, you like nice things. You like nice cars, and you want to have a big house. And unfortunately, it's going to be hard to do that on a teacher's salary." So I wound up, going to UTC, and I changed my majors a few times, and I don't want to do, but I wound up back where I originally started with economics. Economics is a major that you love or you hate.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
I loved it. I liked seeing how turning this knob over here affects this one over here, especially on a macro level. It was just interesting to me. And while I was in college, I worked part-time for Citizens Tri-County Bank, to pay the bills and have my fun money. And I also got an internship with Northwestern Mutual, which I don't know if you're familiar with Northwestern mm-hmm. Mutual, the largest life insurer in the world. And a financial planning firm. So I got to work with Bryce Thomas is the managing director for the Chattanooga office. And he's still my financial advisor to this day. He's fantastic. I trust him with my life. I know he says I should save more money. And I'm working on that.
He's like, probably not the BMW this year, right?
Not the Beamer. He says, Garrett, have fun, but just remember, I'm like, well, okay, whatever you say. So I've always been in a customer-facing, I don't like to call it sales. I like, right. Because people think sales is, they're trying to make me do something I don't want to do. When in reality, it's all consulting, And then Mr. Gentry called and said, Garrett, I've got the perfect job for you, son. I'd like to interview you. And of course, like I said, long story short, wound up going to work at Gentry Chevrolet, and I did that for 5 years. And that is a demanding job as far as being on site. Always being, jump in a moment's notice. If someone walks in the door 5 minutes before closing, we're going to stay and hopefully sell them a car, and we're going to do it with a smile on our face. We might be saying bad words, between our teeth, but God knows I did. But it was definitely, as far as learning anything in the business world, there is not a better job that could teach you than that finance job, which I think is why I've been able to hit the ground running so quickly in real estate. And not to toot my own horn, well, maybe to toot it a little bit. My very first year, I did just under $7 million in volume.
That's kind of crazy for a first year agent.
First year agent, kind of crazy. I had 28 units, and I thought, well, maybe I've got the hang of this, because most first year agents struggle to sell even one house.
Right. A lot of seasoned agents.
$7 have trouble. So fast forward to year number 2, I took what I learned in year 1, built on it, maintained my relationships, met new people, 17 million in year number 2. So when you're doing that kind of volume, and I'm 27 years old, I think I found what I'm supposed to be doing at this juncture in life. And, and all that experience has led up to that, and since I've been doing that, it's kind of kept that pace and done even more and met even more people. So, that's kind of where I am today.
Because you would have started in real estate in what year?
So I started at the very end of 21, December 21. So you might as well say 22.
The reason I bring that up is not like you started in the peak of COVID where rates were down, buyers were out there, sellers could just say, I want to sell my home, and they were selling their home. You started in more of the challenging time. Rates were starting to elevate. Mm-hmm. People were curious about what was going to happen. They suddenly pushed the pause button. They wanted to wait because, that was kind of at the end of, I think it's 21 and 22. Mm-hmm. We started seeing that. And so you even pushed through then, being a new agent, to be able to do that much. That's quite a bit to say there.
Yeah. And you'll always hear it's the market, the excuse. That's why I'm not selling anything. The market's always going to be what it is. Mm-hmm. If it's never going to be perfect for someone's entire career, it's going to change every few years. Sometimes for the better and sometimes for the worse. But really, if it's worse for some, it's better for others. So there's always that. And for me, the down markets present opportunity. Mm-hmm. That really separates the professionals from the people that got in it when it was easy.
And I think that's the prime example of you calling it consulting versus other people calling it sales. Because if you're in the consulting and you're advising the client, whether it's time for them to sell or not, you're still treating that as a professional transaction versus someone walking out the door and say, well, they didn't sign the listing agreement. You know what I mean? It's more on that aspect. And I think that's what separates, you from a lot of people is the way you take that approach.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious, kind of on just very quickly, and you might plead the fifth on this, but since you worked in the car dealership, there's a stigma about car salesmen. Is that accurate?
The guys I worked with were all fantastic. At the end of the day, they are there to sell a car.
That's their job.
They're going to try to sell you a car. You can't blame them from trying to put food on the table.
That's right.
And I'll say this, other dealerships certainly do have that stigma. I've tested it some. I can always tell when I'm being sold because the commission breath, you can smell it a mile away.
When they agree with everything, right?
Oh, yeah. So, or laugh at my dumb jokes, ha ha. Or give me the four square where they don't tell you the out the door. I'm like, look, where I was, we didn't work that way. You knew what you were buying. You knew what you were getting. The first question I always ask people was, do you like the car? Because if you don't really like the car, the numbers aren't going to matter.
Yeah.
So. And then it turned into, I guess I do like the car. Well, then now let's make it make sense for you to buy the car. Mm-hmm. So same thing in real estate. Selling homes is a little different than selling cars in some aspects, but in some, not really. You know, your customer, they just want to know they're being taken care of, and that you're being honest with them.
Right. So first year, you absolutely killed it. How?
So I'll tell you what I did, and I teach this in some of my classes. In the MLS, you know, in the Greater Chattanooga MLS, you can rank. You can go in there and rank all the agents. So what I did was I pulled up the top 100 agents because I want to be in the top. You know, if you're a top 100 agent, that's top 3%. And I've been able to maintain that, you know, since I've essentially got in the business. You know, starting my second year. But I looked and what are these top agents doing to get business? You know, so I Googled them, I Facebooked them, I Instagrammed them. I looked at all their social media. And they were all doing a version of the same thing. You know, they were all, it looked like they were running a business, a professional business, almost kind of like a law firm in a way. That's how I like to project my business to people. Disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I got to say that. But but I looked at what they were doing and I put my own spin on it. You know, I branded myself, you know, got on, you know, Facebook and did the social media, you know, business pages. And what helped me so much was the fact that all the people that saw me, I already had a relationship with. So what I tell people is while the social media is important, you still have to you have to go out and build the relationships. Right. I'm not an agent that's going to cold call. I hate cold calling. I hate the idea of it. I just feel icky doing it. I have no, you know, kudos to the ones that do it and are successful. But I want something that's sustainable, that I enjoy doing, and you know, my clients know me, so it's easier to work with them. You know, there's not this, do I really trust this person? You know, I mean, it just makes the transaction easier. They know I'm going to take care of them, and work my butt off for them. But that's what I did. I looked at what are the top agents doing, and I mimicked it. You know, again, social media, and just pounded the pavement. I wanted everybody to know that I was a real estate agent, a good one, that I'm backed by a very, you know, prominent brand, Crylock. You know, that's it.
Yeah. Did you invest any, are you in any coaching or do you do any coaching or?
It's a good question. And I failed to mention that. So yes, I did, you know, right when I started, I paid $10,000 for a real estate coach. At the time, he was with a larger real estate coaching company. He's branched off on his own, and now he's still my coach, and he's really more like an accountability partner. You know, every conversation we have, he's not out telling me what I need to do, because that's the other thing too. When you hire a coach, you don't hire a coach, you know, in this job for them to say, hey, this is how you need to behave. This is how you need to act. This is what you need to do. You already know how to do that. They tweak it and fine tune it, which is what my coach does. And every conversation we have, I always feel a little better, and with a renewed sense of confidence. So yes, I did hire a coach.
Yeah. And a lot of times people think that's a waste of money, a quote unquote waste of money. But they don't understand that it's really an investment into your business, right? You have to get paired with the right coach or the right program, because there are so many people out there, and I'm in a program as well. My coach, like, I would love to get to the level he's at. Like, he's absolutely killing it. So I can look at him as an example of what he's doing. The program, the founder of the program. But so many people get coached by someone who hasn't really been in the trenches. They haven't really done it. Yeah. So what would you say to the agent that is out there that's contemplating on the coaching, but they think it's going to cut into their profits?
Here's what I suggest, you know, and the thing is this, you know, if you're that $50 or $60 or $70,000 a year agent, go and get you a business credit card, you know, as long as you got the credit, put the coach on there, get you $10,000 or $15,000 credit limit, go out there and invest in it. And if you don't see a return, now invest in it, but also put the work in. Right. You know, or you're just let that cash flow. Give yourself 12 to 18 months. Worst case scenario, you spent $10,000 and you failed at this. It's time to go and do something else, you know. But I understand, you know, where people come, well, I don't have $10,000 lying around. You know, we're starting a business, you know, I mean, you can't expect it all to be handed to you, you know? Right. So, and I will say I invested heavily and I did max out a couple of credit cards and luckily was able to pay them off and back pretty quickly. But invest in it. I mean, I think a lot of people want to try to, sugarcoat it and baby it and, this. And the fact of the matter is you've got to get hooked in with the right people. And in this business, you get what you pay for.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I think a lot of people, you're investing in yourself. Like a lot of people want to go and they want to invest in real estate in a fix or a flip or whatever. And maybe the returns are not there, but a lot of the programs, a lot of things I've listened to, it's like your best investment's yourself.
Always. And that's what I was just about to say, always that you are always going to be your highest return.
Yeah. So you get that. And now I know before you had worked with a team capacity, leading that team. And I think now you're still focusing on your own, but you've also probably been that person too. You said you searched for the top 100. I'm sure people have reached out to you now and have asked your advice of what you're doing. What's one or two quick things that you tell them? Like, because was it last year? I think the stat, I don't know if this is true or not, but 70% of licensed agents closed one transaction, which that's kind of crazy.
70% did not close a single transaction.
Did not close a single transaction.
Yeah.
Okay.
The statistics are, it's pretty astounding. But the barrier to entry into real estate is very low. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to talk should it be any difficult or whatever. But my advice is make sure you've got the right mindset for this business that you've started. This isn't just I work for so and so. No, you work for yourself. You're the CEO. You're the COO. You're the CFO. You're the whatever.
Everything.
You're everything. You are a business. You are. I am Garrett Cox, CEO of the Garrett Cox Real Estate Practice. Now I am at a brokerage. But the brokerage is just a medium, for what you're doing. So pick the brokerage, don't just pick it based on the split, but pick them who's going to align most with your values and provide you the kind of support that you need and desire. But the biggest thing is you can't be a secret agent, and then that's what I see so much. The last thing I want anybody when they come up to me is, I didn't know you were an agent. Right. I'm like, and that's to talk about that's the worst thing a real estate agent could ever hear, from a friend.
Yeah.
So, but genuinely care about people, focus on maintaining and building relationships. And if I could give someone, what is something today that I can do, that can affect my business in the next 30 to 60 to 90 days, because as you know, in this business, what we do today isn't affecting our paycheck tomorrow. Right. It's affecting it 30, 60, 12 months from now.
Yeah, very much so.
But, with the relationships you build. So I always say reconnect with 10 friends that you haven't spoken to within 6 months. Hey, just wanted to call and check on you. Didn't know if you knew this or not, but I'm in real estate. If there's anything I can ever do for you, please let me know. I've started this business. And don't be afraid to tell people, hey, I'm new. I've just started this. But I've got this team. We've got plenty of listings. This office that I'm at, plenty of listings. If there's something I can do, please let me know. And we always, they say 30 something touch points per month. Whether that's they scroll by you on Instagram or Facebook, you go have lunch with them, you speak to them, whatever, your name pops up it needs to pop up 30 times in a month. And I like to put, some activities are worth more points than others.
Right.
So a Facebook post, maybe one or two. If they click on it and look at it, it's a video. Maybe that's 4 or 5. Taking them to lunch, well, there's 30 right there.
Yeah. That interaction.
Take one friend to lunch each week. Suit up, and when I say suit up, I don't mean shirt and tie, but dress like a professional. Put a nice polo on. Or whatever. And if it's your best friend, then wear whatever you want. But be present, be visible, and don't try to what I tell new agents. Cold calling can only get you so far, but you have to do it so much.
Yeah.
It's I took an SRS class, which is the a seller representative specialist class through the NAR. And the statistic is it takes 20 times the amount of work to convert a cold lead than a warm lead. Mm-hmm. So what that means is you can go and try to meet 20 strangers going to take 20 times the work, or call your mom, call your grandma, call your friend, call your uncle,
Yeah.
Because it all, you spread your tentacles as far as they'll go. But that's what I recommend, and then post on Facebook, hey, check out this listing, and people are like, well, Garrett, I don't have any listings. Your office does, find you an agent in the office that's not going to mind if you share their listing. You do it the right way, in the very bottom, give them credit, listed by, Garrett Cox at Crowlike. Nobody's going to read that far. They're just going to know that you posted something on Facebook and you look like a real estate agent. Then you're going to get that phone call. Hey, we've been thinking about selling in a couple months. What do you think we can get for our house? We know the market's kind of crazy right now, but we think our house is worth this. What do you think? Great. There's the phone call you've been waiting for, and maybe they don't list immediately. Real estate is definitely the long game. Or, you know what, Garrett, we've been thinking about buying a house and I just saw this Facebook post, can you help us?
Right.
I get that all the time. And that's how it started for me.
Yeah. And, because when we talked and you were telling me about the growth of your business, and you were like, no, it's circle of influence. It's touch points. It's taking care of my clients, not just the ones that you're helping buy right now or the ones you're helping sell. So there's an importance of your database. And because I know we talked about a lot of agents think they can go onto a major platform and buy leads, and those just automatically convert when they realize maybe they invest a lot of money for almost no return. When, like you said, you can go in, take care of your database, take care of those people in it, do those touch points, and get out there. And the powerful thing that we have, and you do such a great job at it, is social media. So was there a point when you started posting on social media that maybe you didn't feel comfortable, or maybe you got pushback from people because it's like, oh, now, look at Garrett doing this or that? Or did you just you just went right at it?
I went right at it, and I haven't had a single negative comment. If anything, it's all been positive. Now, you may or have someone who's jealous and have a hater. We all
that's all
you can't climb to the top without having some haters. But and when I say that, I mean that loosely. I mean I don't have anybody that I don't think hates me. But no, I mean just do it. I mean the thing is just do it. They're not doing it. You do it, and if it's going to make you a $10,000 or $15,000 paycheck, who cares what anybody thinks?
Right.
But no, I mean, social media has been such a huge part of my success because it's part of my brand visibility, and that's kind of part of it. Yeah, I know a lot of people, but you have to be visible to those people. And the one goal that I have is I want, when someone has a real estate question, really a question about anything, I want them to call me. I want to be the person that they think of. And I've done a good job of that.
And I think that's where it separates people, because I take calls sometimes and people's like, hey, I got this car loan. Can you help me with it? And I'm like, well, I personally can't, but I can answer your questions. Like, I've been around the block. I know what's going on. I know finances here or there. And it does make you feel good that you're the first point of contact when somebody has a question about this or that. Or not only that, it allows you to make those additional connections too.
Yeah.
And once again, then that additional connection, it just ties back in. And a lot of times people are they feel people, I guess, in this sales role is that's all they want to do. But when they come to learn, like, man, I've advised people to go get a different product than maybe what I can even offer them before. And at the end of the day, when people really see how much you care, that's really what matters. And then that's when they really trust you. And so it's just how you build business and stuff. So let's talk a bit. Obviously, the challenge in our industry right now is, number one, first-time home buyers. So let's talk about that, and then we'll talk about kind of the environment, the market, what you're seeing. I know we talked about kind of putting market conditions out there, but let's dispel some of those maybe myths or uncomfort factors. So the challenge right now is a young home buyer. I was at a builder's breakfast this morning, and a very well-known developer, he was talking about the challenge, the land acquisition cost. He had mentioned, he said, I've thought about buying a plot and maybe just starting with some manufactured homes or modular homes, because unfortunately, price point wise and size of home, that's more in the affordability range. So what do you see from the first-time home buyer perspective, trying to fit within a budget that's challenging?
Yeah, so I absolutely love working with first-time home buyers. There's that sense of, again, fulfillment that I get just, helping somebody buy their first home. I know when I bought my first home, it was like, it was awesome. Now, granted, it was right before COVID. In fact, it was in March of 2020 when I went under contract on my first home, the first couple of weeks of March 2020.
And then
so it was just wonderful. The lender called the office every day to see if I was at work. Well, have you seen him? It's like, you're speaking to him. I'm the one that picked up the phone. All right, well, we'll check again tomorrow.
I know, it's crazy.
So, but first-time home buyers, I think that, the most important thing, for a first-time home buyer is partnering with an agent that A, knows what you're going through, and B, also knows how to structure a deal to help you get that, lower payment or your closing costs covered, and then that knows loan programs. For instance, in our area, we do a lot of USDA loans. I love a USDA loan.
Yeah.
What the great thing about a USDA loan is you can get 6% back as a concession from the seller. So your closing costs typically range. If the seller's going to pay them, 2.5% to 3% of the mortgage. But Garrett, this is a lot right now. How I can afford maybe $1,500 or $1,600, but I really can't do $1,800. Well, let me ask you this. You're new at your job, whatever. Do you expect to be making more money in 1, 2, 3, or 4 years? Well, yeah. We have a raise, whatever. Well, let's structure it. This is just an example. Let's get you a 2-1 buy down. I've got a first-time home buyer that we closed in December. Her first year mortgage rate is 3.875, which took her from $1,700 down to $1,400, and give or take some change. But she said, Garrett, this is the only way I can buy this house. She happens to work for a large company, and she secured every year I get bonuses and raises, and this is just perfect. So again, without me having that knowledge up front, she may not have even gotten the house, oh, well, it's too much. Well, I don't know what I'm doing, So luckily the sellers were amenable to structuring it that way. And, a lot of people don't want to pay full price. But if you're getting 6% back from the sellers, that's better than a $10,000 discount.
I've tried to explain that, and I've actually got a board over here. I've written it down before, because I guess it's a mentality thing, right? It's like, I don't want to pay list price for the house. But if you pay list price for the house and you get a 6% concession, then the power that 6% concession, because I just try to tell people, hey, okay, if you come down 10,000 and you don't get that 10,000 closing costs, you got to bring 10,000 more to the table, and your payment's not changing much. Yeah. And it's, man, it makes a difference when an agent understands that, when you're like, these buyers need $10,000. And I've said that before, and I've got contracts back, and it's like, hey, the seller's only paying $5,000 in closing. And I'm like, we got a problem then. Yeah. Because we don't,
you can't do it.
Where's the other $5,000 coming from? And so it's important. The affordability, the payment, that's a big thing as well. The challenge that I see is, unfortunately, I have to be the bad guy a lot of times, because my question is, what's your budget? Not what I can approve you for, what's your budget? And I get a lot of $1,200 answers and $1,300 answers. And then we have to reevaluate, kind of like you said on the 2-1 buy down. You have to reevaluate to say, okay, here's what that affords you. Now, let's really look into your budget and see, can you squeeze out an extra few $100s? Because that can be the difference, of the home that really fits their need when it comes to that.
Well, that's the other advice that I have, for first time. I mean, really not just first time home buyers, any buyer. Before you start, everybody always wants to go and look at houses, and it's fun, and at first it's fun and whatever, but nail down exactly what you want to spend, partner with a lender first. I'm that agent that, if we're establishing a relationship, I'll show you homes, but I don't want you to get disappointed when the perfect one comes up and you haven't spoken to a lender, because that's the one that somebody else is going to swoop in and buy. But if we have everything done on the front end, we know how to structure your deal before we even find a house,
right?
Because we're going to know your price point. We're going to know what you can spend. We're going to know where your payment is. We're going to know what to negotiate from the seller, So as a first-time home buyer, I think the most important thing is partnering with a lender before you even partner with a realtor. But if it's me, then I've got you. I've got several lenders in my. We all know a ton of lenders and a ton of realtors. We all know a ton of people.
It's the way the industry works.
So, but that's my thing is let's solve the problems first. Let's find solutions before we have the problem.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
and I think the thing that generally happens is buyers are taking advice from people they bought in COVID and got a ridiculous rate. Right, that's already expired. They're taking advice maybe from parents that bought a house 30 years ago. I know you're
Those
smiling.
Are fun ones.
You probably had that. They show up. They would have walked through the house with you.
Yep.
And a lot, but it's like, because in my world, things change so fast. Like there's so many opportunities, there's so many programs, and things change so fast. And I'm like, I'm not going to bite you. I'm not going to yell at you. But before you spend a lot of time, you need to know expectations, cash to close, expectations, payment, because you and I don't get paid until the deal closes. There's a lot of time we invest in that. Like you mentioned, sometimes 12 months that it goes. So I think that's a big thing. So what about in today's market, because listings are staying on the market longer. So the challenge that we have there, kind of address what you see with the sellers, maybe how you advise the sellers, because we're not 1 or 2 days on the market anymore in most situations. We're longer. What is the average days on market right now?
So in my hyper local market of Marion County, average days of active listings is over 100. So we're definitely in that 4 or 5 month of what's active, but in reality, the sheer number of listings points to about a 5 to 6 month supply of inventory. And what that means, and it's what I explain to sellers, that doesn't mean it's going to take 5 or 6 months to sell your house. What that means is if there were no new listings added to the market, it would take about 5 to 6 months to go through, based on today's market conditions, to get through all the listings. Now that changes, doesn't typically change as much daily, but it could. But as weeks and months go on by, different things in the world, interest rates, everything, that can change. But we're seeing 4 and 5 and 6 months on market. I've got listings that have hit the 300-day mark, and it's like, Garrett, what are we going to do? I'm at my wit's end. I can't sell it. And the question that so many people ask is it the right time to buy? Is it the right time to sell? If I had a crystal ball, I could tell you, but that even then that wouldn't matter. It's the right time to buy or sell if it's the right time to buy or sell for you. Everybody's got the right time to buy or sell. So, but I mean, it's the what we're seeing right now is, again, sellers don't have as much, control as they did 3 or 4 years ago. And really, what we're seeing is more normal, because for the past, 20 to 30 years, except for the past few years, the real estate market has been subsidized in some way by the government. Between 2009 and 2022, the subsidy was very low interest rates, There's been, and when I say subsidized by the government, there's been some external factor that's helped propel and move houses.
Because they had to get after the bubble burst. They had to push some initiatives out there to get it back going.
The other thing, too, is COVID happened. All of a sudden, it happened at a time where rates were very low, and it pushed demand through the roof. Which is why, and there weren't that many homes to sell to begin with. So now we're in a market that doesn't have a real external support. It's just a natural, it's a normal market. And really, normal for us is a subsidized market because that's all I've known my whole life. So this is something that just doesn't have the type of artificial support. So, which is why we're in this, and everybody got used to the home selling in a day, or at least as a seller, buyers now have options. But what I found is the more options that are there, the harder it is to make a decision.
Oh, it is.
So buyers are definitely thinking a lot longer, thinking a lot harder, and as they should. This is not something it's kind of funny. you almost spend more time looking at a car than you do a house when you decide to buy one, but you can't really take the house for a test drive, but you walk through it and, you do your inspections and, but yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the thought process is you mentioned it kind of like, I'm going to wait, or is now the right time? Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't matter what period you go back, because here's the thing, real estate as a whole historically has an appreciation rate 4 to 5%. COVID was a bit insane. We got double digit appreciation there for a few years that escalated everything. But people in the COVID times were waiting because they wasn't sure with the whole COVID going on. Even though rates were low, they wasn't sure about their job. And then rates started going up, and then they was going to wait for them to come down. And then now, we have the world events going on. We're going to wait on that. And like you said, it's when the time matters for you. A lot of people are stuck into these COVID rates, but we're seeing a few things happen. Is number one, people are outgrowing their homes. They're having kids. They don't like the location. They were in a starter home. They want to move up. They've got a job, difference. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity out there, but I think it's, kind of back to the teacher thing is it's educating them. It's just letting people know, because your situation is different than the other person's situation from there. So you can't let the outside noise, the outside factors play a part. If it's right for you, it's right for you.
Yeah.
But the wonderful opportunity of people that have owned a home for 5-6 years is the amount of appreciation that they've had. And we see people that's kind of gotten themselves maybe in a little trouble with extended debt, but they're able to use that equity, sell it, pay it off, and still achieve what they're wanting to within the home there. So it's definitely ever changing, and who knows what the rest of this year. We were told the beginning of the year, hey, we're going to be on a decline on the rates. Now let me ask you this: with that amount of houses on the market and kind of that inventory supply, do you think if rates do trend back down, because all of these people that are waiting, because there's not only one waiting, there's a whole bunch waiting, do you think that's going to cause like kind of that absorption and create that demand, put us maybe more tilted back in the seller's favor?
To answer your question, just from black and white, yes, I do think that it will create more demand. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't predict anything. I think what would happen if rates did, especially if we got into the, base rate and, low 5s, 5.5. I think, I don't think it's going to be this just craze, but I do think that it's going to allow more buyers to buy a home. For most buyers, they're not buying a home because they don't want to, it's because they can't, So do I think it's going to push prices up? Not necessarily. I mean, the thing is, when it comes to home prices, it's all based on supply and demand,
right?
So what we're seeing in Marion County is we're listing high and you're seeing record price reductions, everybody's dropping the price, it's because we think we might can get that, and one or two do.
Right.
It's just kind of, because they had the product that somebody wanted at the time they listed it, and that happens every time. But my prediction is I think we'll just see more activity. I don't think prices will just go crazy. They might. But the thing is, they're already crazy in a sense.
Yeah.
They're already crazy compared to
yeah.
So, and I'm not, we all see the market. So, now I would love for them to fall. I would love to have some more activity, as we all would.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's. I think that I don't think that it would. I think we're going to see more activity, not necessarily a change in prices.
Yeah, and I think the advantage of people are looking right now is you have more opportunity to negotiate through inspections. You have more opportunity to negotiate seller paid closing costs. But when the rates come out and there are more, like you said, I don't necessarily think we're going to see that spike in prices going up, but I think you're going to lose the leverage.
You will lose leverage
on that.
And see that's to your point. As a buyer right now, buyers, this is the most amount of leverage they've had in years.
Yeah.
So that begs the question: when do you want to be purchasing a house? Rates are half a point lower, and you're fighting with other people, or when you have the most leverage today. Because if half a point drop, we can leverage some of that today and get you the repairs that you want, So doesn't mean you can get absolutely everything on your wish list, but you can get a lot more than you could before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Awesome, man. So we'll wrap up. I like to kind of throw out some rapid fire questions, not necessarily real estate, just some fun questions out there. So I see on Facebook you enjoy your dining experiences.
I do.
What's your favorite restaurant lately that you've ate at? Like, what's the recommendation you'd give?
Oh gosh, so there are a lot of good ones. Now, I would say my favorite place to go to on a Friday night. You do have to be a member. But would be the.
Can you invite guests or anything?
You can't. So currently I'm a guest, but I've got my application in. So I do piggyback when I go. But it's the Chattanooga Golf and Country Club. Excellent food, excellent atmosphere. You're right there on the river. They've got it open. Nice, super cool, bar area that they just finished within the past couple of years. Last year, I think, is when they completed it. Definitely enjoy that on a Friday night. A lot of new places in downtown Chattanooga. You've got my favorite, I guess a date night restaurant would be Aaliyah, right there on Main Street. Italian restaurant. Very, very awesome food. If you're wanting more of a casual rooftop experience, we've got 2 new rooftop restaurants / bars that have opened up. One above the Waymark Hotel and the other one above the Caption Hotel, right there downtown. And of course, I have to mention River Dance at River Gorge Ranch.
I still haven't been there. I've got to get reservations.
I met a really good agent friend of mine yesterday there. We had lunch and caught up. And I mean, the food there it's incredible. The views are incredible.
Yeah.
But that would be, kind of the top 3 or 4 or 5 spots for me. But all good stuff.
Good deal. All right. So if you are going to dinner, you had invited one guest, dead or living, doesn't matter. Who's that guest going to be?
Oh, I've heard this question before, I think on a TV show.
I steal stuff.
Actually, no. It was Ron White had said something. Ron White's one of my favorite comedians. Speaking of, I think it would probably be Ron White.
That'd be pretty entertaining.
Just because, you can never laugh too much.
Yeah.
And he's one of my favorite comedians. The dry, mature humor is, kind of gets me. So,
yeah.
Off the top of my head, but, he would be one. Gosh, not to get, kind of sad, but I'd probably want to take my dad to lunch one more time.
Yeah.
So
that'd be cool. If we get in your vehicle right now, what are we going to hear on your Apple Music or podcast? Like what's going on?
I promise you, my radio is probably on US 101 right now.
Oh yeah, okay.
Big country music. That's about and I've got a lot that I listen to. It's kind of funny. Depends on the environment. Like if I'm in my boat, I turn it to KZ 106. I like classic rock on the lake.
80s. Yeah.
Don't know what it is, but that's you've got your cooler full of Coors Light or whatever your choice is, and crank up a Def Leppard or whatever, your White Snake, and if you're on the river, but in the truck, in the car, all the way from 90s to today's country is what I like to listen to.
Yeah.
So.
Little fun fact. I don't know if she even remembers me, but Melissa on US 101. Yeah. We actually went to college together.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So that might date us and her.
Dex and Mo.
Yeah. So it's been a while. Awesome, man. So if you're sitting in my seat and you're interviewing someone, who would be, just if there's anybody out there in the world to interview, it doesn't matter, real estate, business minded, politician, whatever it is, who do you think would be a cool person to have in that seat?
Well, I'll give you 2. One of them who is in real estate. I've always been a huge fan of Ryan Serhant.
Yeah.
So he, you could ask one question and he'll probably steal the show, which is fine.
Right.
So definitely him. Gosh, as far as someone else, let me think just for a second. Who would I want to interview? It would have to be somebody like Peyton Manning or
which you never know when you may catch him around the valley.
That I do know. I do know. Yep.
The his son goes to Baylor.
Yes.
At middle school, and I know he has ties or used to have ties to Thunder Thornton, and then you got Sweetens Cove.
Sweetens Cove, yeah.
That he's associated with. So you never know when you might see him.
Yep.
Thunder Thornton would be an interesting.
He would be an interesting one.
He's done a lot of things, that's for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, Peyton, I definitely wouldn't turn Peyton down.
I mean, I haven't. Of course, I've never met him, but I've heard he's just the nicest, down to earth, kind of just like all of us, here. So
yeah.
So that I think he would be a fun one. But
awesome. Last question for you: if you could go back to the 18-year-old Garrett that was graduating high school, what would you tell that 18-year-old from where you're at today?
And I've told people this, always continually focus on treating people right and expanding your network, and when I say that, continually building relationships. People have said, Garrett, you act the same way you did when you were in high school. I'm an old soul. So I was always acted a little older than ever, I guess I've been 55 since I was 15. But that's the advice I would give, and the only thing I would change is I would just get out and network more. I mean, that's, not just in the real estate industry, but any industry, whether you're an attorney, trying to drum up business for your firm, or you're, or a real estate agent or a mortgage lender or anything that has some sort of car salesman, whatever that is, some sort of self-motivating component to it. Your network is your net worth. The more you expand it,
Yeah. So I've been reading more books lately, and right now I'm reading Never Eat Alone, and it talks pretty much about that. The power of a connection is big. And it's just like, I know you and I, we didn't know each other, 6 to 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And, and then when we made our connection, then we kind of connected to other people, and the power of a connection is just a huge thing, because what does it hurt to get to know someone? It's not every time you're wanting to get to know someone, you're not always asking for a favor or, it's just like, and that's why I wanted to create this podcast, is to have people on. And hopefully, I'm sure you probably have some connections and mutual connections we could get in touch with, but just to hear their story about building the connection, building things, because I think there's so many success stories that are out there, and there's so many encouraging things that can be told to give that person that may be listening that little bit of spurt to say, hey, you know what? I'm not really liking things, and I've always wanted to jump out and to do this. And it's through those connections say, hey, help me out here.
Yep.
And so I think that's great. But
speaking of books, before we finish, one of my favorite business books, and it's a very quick read, is The Go-Giver. If you haven't read that, I highly recommend it. Yep.
I'll have to put that on my list.
It's all about, in every interaction that you have with someone, what are you contributing? What are you giving to that? Because you're gonna get a lot more than you give if you give correctly. Mm-hmm. You'll get 10 times back what you get. But if you're just focused on what am I getting out of this, you're not going to get anything. So
that's true.
You have to give to get.
Yeah, that's true. Because a lot of people, it's all about get, not give. So great advice there, man. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you tackling some of the, I guess, so to say, noise in the industry, and tackling the, real estate's not an easy career path. A lot of people think it is. A lot of people think it's my own hours and this and that. But when 70% don't even close a transaction, is not the easiest industry. And you've absolutely done a wonderful job. I'm glad I can call you a friend, and that we were able to do this show. So anything you need from me, always let me know. And thanks for coming on and giving great knowledge out there.
Absolutely.
All right, Garrett. Thanks, man.